Okay, it's live now.
Okay. I did question number 5, the prompt number 5,
Okay.
how women are depicted. Um, I felt they were depicted as being very strong women because, I mean, they got the strip clubs unionized for one thing, but I also felt like their employers kind of objectified them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's almost like they they didn't care at all how what their working conditions were as long as they were making the money for them. They
Yeah.
didn't care about how much money they were making.
Well, and they only cared about certain women to begin with, like not in scheduling African American women, only white women.
Yeah.
So how the better you look to them, that's how you what your work was based on.
Yeah. They yeah, they also wanted their breasts to be, you know,
A certain size.
certain size,
Blonde hair.
blonde hair, don't gain any weight.
Or get sick apparently.
Yeah, I mean they were
Right,
working
that's crazy.
while they were sick, and that's they needed to be unionized.
Yeah.
They definitely weren't being protected, and the security measures were, I mean, like that one girl had a gun pulled on her.
Yeah, what if he'd actually showed up?
Yeah, what would have happened then? I mean, a lot of them have children. They don't get provided any health insurance, or which means there's probably not any life insurance. What happens to their children if something like that happens?
Or the whole being people not shutting their doors.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't see why the company didn't do something about that because they're losing money as well. You would think that it would be beneficial to them to only let one person in at a time, have them shut their door and not record it. Like they're just shooting themselves in the foot with that.
Yeah.
But they still allowed it to happen for whatever reason.
And when she was talking about people grabbing their breasts, that's against the law in most states that you can't touch them.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I think it's the law here. I mean, in Florida, I think you're allowed to touch them, but the owner was like, oh, it's okay if they touch you. They just didn't care about them. They just cared about how much money was lining their pockets.
Well, they probably
and oh, were you gonna say?
No, go ahead. I'll say it after.
I was just like thinking actually throughout the whole video and like all the stuff that you guys are talking about, and my conversation starter what was basically about like reevaluated while watching the movie, and from the textbook and the movie itself. Well, in the beginning, you would think that being an exotic dancer, or at least after the 1970s, would be like liberating, and you would be like your own body, and like this is like a great thing for women. But all of the things that you guys are talking about, like the working conditions and them having to unionize because of this, it's like it wasn't liberating at all. So that's what I like had to reevaluate as I watched the movie. Like this isn't really what it seemed to be for them at all. Like,
well, I think the women, some of them talked about how they really didn't enjoy their job, but you have less time to enjoy it when you're so worried about all the other stuff. They didn't see themselves as doing anything wrong or bad, but it was just the conditions around them that, made it seem like that. But what I didn't realize, I guess, because we only talk in the book about unionized, like we talked about that in pretty much every chapter, but we didn't get any like modern day examples, like after the 70s and 80s, you know. And I think this movie is from 2000 or the 90s, so that's pretty close. And you don't really hear about people unionizing anymore.
Yeah.
Or women, at least. So I thought that was interesting. But I chose to think about what confused me. And did you guys understand, were they doing this and also working at the same time, or were they protesting the entire time they were working on the negotiations? Like, were they still employed? Because these women had to make money.
It looked to me like they were probably still employed.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if they were or not, because they protested some days, and then I can't imagine that being at work while you're trying to negotiate, I think it's a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Or they would try and make it more manageable for you.
That's actually a good question. I remember at one point in the video, at the very, well, it was towards the end, where one of the girls were talking about the management, and they were saying how something about the contract losing them money, so they would rather shut the doors than to have this contract.
Yeah, I remember that.
Losing money. So I'm not sure. Question.
Well,
I think they did work, but they constantly were threatening to strike.
Did you guys catch that the person that owns it was a woman? Did you see that when they were out there protesting?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you, as a woman, want to protect the women you employ?
You would think. I was really surprised by that one of the owners of that club was a woman.
Yeah.
I was really surprised that, I mean, she didn't, I don't know, she just saw her pockets getting lined.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think a lot of it comes down to money, basically. Even when they were talking about how, first of all, there were only 3 Black women working in that club, and then they weren't scheduled at the same time. But then it would be 1 Black woman scheduled for a private room every so often, really. Mm-hmm. But they basically said, because the top 10 women were these white, busty women, blonde women. And so it would be like a smarter business move, I guess, for them to have those women and then 1 Black woman. But then, I mean, first of all, like the woman in the movie said, that's illegal because it's still discrimination. But also, I was thinking that it could have just been some sort of excuse to not have Black women, because if the top 10 women were diverse, I don't even feel as though it would lose you money.
Well, they said that they were interested in those types of women. So it probably would have been better for their business if they had included more women like that, but they didn't.
Right. So I feel like that the money thing was probably just an excuse to discriminate against these women.
The whole ordeal with them unionizing really reminded me of, I think it's back in chapter 8 when they started talking about the shirtwaist fire, the triangle shirtwaist fire, and how they were, all the picketing they were doing, trying to get unionized so that they could have fair wages and, you know, better work conditions and stuff. I mean,
well, it didn't take something as awful as that.
Yeah.
Happening to me, but it could have, like you said earlier, that one girl had a gun pointed at her. These people filming them, that can ruin somebody's life.
Yeah.
If just that, it would today at least.
Yeah, because a lot of women, and like the one girl, she was a social worker.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and then she stripped on weekends. And imagine if they found out about that. I mean, that would have probably ruined her career. So, and there's a lot of professional women who do strip on the side, and any people going in there and videoing them and then uploading it on the internet, you never know who's going to see it. And
well, that would happen.
Yeah.
And then anytime the cops were called, they said it would take hours to get there, or when they got there, they had somehow just missed the person who had caused an issue.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
So not only were these women, they had no opportunity, they weren't even being protected by the public.
yeah,
Yeah, that's what I was kind of saying earlier, how these women weren't protected in this job, that they, at least some of them felt like I'm doing this for myself, and it's my body. I can do whatever I want. I have control over it. But if someone's you and they're not supposed to, but you're not being protected from the people at your job that are supposed to protect you against that, then it's like why would you even do it? Because I don't feel safe to do this anymore. So it like kind of taints it for them, like something that was supposed to be so powerful, it just like ruins it for them.
yeah.
Well, and also there's the debate in the chapter, I think it was chapter 11, where they talked about the sexual revolution and everything. Mm-hmm. While there were a lot of women like those that we saw in the video that felt that way, there were also the same women who called themselves feminists, and they talked about this in the film too, that disagreed with that. Some say that the simple act of stripping and all that is still oppressive to women, and others think it's liberating.
I have mixed emotions on that. I mean,
even like the mom at the end, where she was saying how mind, like why would you do this to your body, like you don't have to do this, you have a mind. So it's like that part in the movie was showing the like both sides of what people feel about it.
Well, plenty of women don't have to do it, but they get extra money that way or whatever. And she has a degree, she had several, and just like you said earlier, there's the social worker. These aren't just women who are doing nothing with their lives except this.
Yeah.
It's just extra.
I mean, a lot of people do it to put themselves through school. I mean, we all three know tuition is not cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And, go work a minimum wage job, you'll never pay your tuition on just that.
Right.
Imagine if it's somebody that goes to a private college, how much their tuition is. So, I mean, I've heard of several people who were in med school and they stripped to pay their way through med school.
Well, something that kind of relates to that the movie kind of touched on in the beginning, and the book doesn't really talk about that this much, but if you think about the views of men that we've read about, they wouldn't necessarily think this was acceptable. Like a lot of those men probably would have said, well, no, women shouldn't do that, but then they go and watch.
Yeah.
So which is it?
Right. Yeah.
But it is a big leap from, I think earlier in the semester, women would have been less likely to do this just because whoever said that they couldn't. But I don't remember any women in this film mentioning a husband or anything like that. So they were able to make the decision all on their own, make their money on their own, provide for their family by themselves, and that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
At the beginning of our semester.
Yeah.
So that's what I had to rethink. Jennifer, you had the question about what you had to rethink, right?
No.
Oh, maybe it was you, Sarah, but it's just interesting to think about the timeline that we've been through.
Yeah, and I know in the very beginning, maybe like chapter, no, I don't know, but where it was talking about women on TV and how they were like wearing pants,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like, what, like you're wearing pants, like that's, you know, and then to go from that to like the live nude girls is like, wow, like that is a huge leap. And then even today, like I feel like some people still don't agree with exotic dancing, and they don't have to. But if someone wants to do whatever they want to with their body, then I don't feel like it's any of your business. You know, don't watch, don't look. You know, so but they shouldn't be disrespected, and they shouldn't be filmed, and they shouldn't have to give away their money to these people, or you know.
It was a huge percentage because there was the one part where she was talking about she would make like $2,000 and then walk away with like $800 or $900.
Well, do you remember when we were talking about labor unions? Not only women in the shirtwaist factories and the garment industry and everything make so little money with a lot of hours, they would then, once they got their paycheck, it would be docked, like if they broke a needle or if they messed up a shirt or blah, blah, blah. So I just thought about that, and that's almost kind of the same thing. So it's almost like no progress at all.
Yeah.
But even like we were saying, I think it's interesting that we were talking before we started our broadcast was we all wanted to make sure that we could all watch the same film, because that would not be something that would have been shown to anybody ever before now.
Yeah, at all.
It's definitely showed the progression, you know, throughout the time. The progression of women. I mean, who would have thought, you know, 100 years ago that women would be on stage completely nude dancing? I mean, I'm sure it may have happened here and there, but now there's, you know, a strip club in every city, multiple strip clubs in every city.
Well, it might have happened back then, but nobody talked about it, and it was not accepted at all. And at least now it's accepted by some, and those women are able to get some rights. Like, these women were successful.
Yeah. So.
And it's not a group that I think people think wouldn't necessarily be successful. These are really just like regular women, and they were able to accomplish what they wanted to accomplish by the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts?
I think I've said all I can say about it.
Sarah?
Sarah, are you good?
Okay. Well, I guess that's our last video.
It is.
So we're all done. Well, if you guys want to discuss the final project or anything, we can at some point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm confused.
Maybe we'll figure it out. Bye, guys.
Bye.